All right, take two. Let's see what happens. This is just how it works sometimes when you are doing things live. So I'll give everybody a moment to come on back and we will get going with today's episode. Let me know if you can hear me and we'll go from there. Let me pop a message in here. Lucky for all of you, I stay calm in these moments. Get myself comfortable. All right, let's get into it. When you come back, you can definitely pop in the chat. Thank you for your patience. Yay, you see me, you can hear me. Thank you for your patience in the midst of technical difficulties. That is the dynamic of doing things live. But guess what? It's worth it anyway, because that means that I can now see you and read your questions. Because one of the things that we'll start doing today is we'll have a little after party, so at the end, I will stay around and answer some of your questions. Hello, Marianne. Hello, Dorinda, and all those coming through. Thank you for the woohoos and the confirmation that you can see and hear me. If this is your first time with me on a podcast, hello and welcome to Dear Dr. Charryse, a mental health podcast where we discuss life through the lens of neuroscience, integrative health, and mindset so that we can all learn, grow, and honor the space that we are designed to occupy. Today, we're going to talk about the intersection between self talk and self concept. This comes from a listener question submitted by Michael from South Jersey. What's up, South Jersey? One of my favorite places. Although, let's be honest, I say that about everywhere, but truly. And his listener question is, I struggle with negative self talk and it destroys the way that I feel about myself. Are there ways to improve and get better? Absolutely, Michael. And we're going to get into it. The first thing that I want you to keep in mind is that self talk and your self concept are interconnected. Even on your best day, if your self talk is negative, then your self concept and what you believe about yourself is also going to be challenging. So I always want to give you a little defined moment or definition so that we're all centered and thinking around the same thing. What is self concept? You can put in the chat your thoughts around it because I am curious to know what you think it is or what you have come to believe about it. As an overall general psychological definition, self concept is a broad view, or it's intended to be broad, of who we are physically, mentally, socially, and spiritually. All of those areas are going to play a part into your self concept. And what I often see is that people may focus on self concept in one particular area and not recognize that it's going to impact you all across the board. It's something that is developed over time. There is this concept or this thought that we have around childhood that you may not remember every single thing that happens to you as a child, but your childhood remembers you, which means those things are going to show up and have some level of bearing around what you believe about yourself. And our self concept and the way that we talk to ourselves starts when we're small. It starts when we are in a situation where we're learning how should we view ourselves in our home environment with the people who are designed to care and love for us, have love for us, and teach us how to love ourselves. If they're not available or there's a lot of critical self talk, we internalize that and then come to think, oh, I must be doing the same thing too. So when it develops over time, we learn to form and regulate our self concept based on two things. One, what we believe about ourselves. So what you think about yourself absolutely matters. And you have the power to change that, but you have to be intentional. The second thing that pours into our self concept is the input and the feedback from other people. So you really are the company that you keep. You're going to find it extremely difficult to have good self talk and a healthy self concept if you are around people that are unhealthy themselves. And we'll talk about that a little bit in just a while. First, let's do one of my favorite things and talk about what research says about these two concepts. Well, one of the things that we know is it's easy to become critical about yourselves. And as a result of that, be in a place where you are finding that these negative thoughts that you have are on loop. But here's what research also tells us, that when this happens, we become less successful. So, how you speak to yourself plays a big part into your level of success. It also plays into your creativity and your ability to find solutions. Think about that. When you're working on resolving some type of conflict or working on a change or shifting your purpose in life, if your self talk is down and poor and harsh and negative, then you're going to find that creative solutions feel like they are far in the distance. And the other challenge to that is what we believe or don't believe about ourselves will also show up in our interactions with other people. So if I were to come to you in these moments, for example, and then seem like I was doubting myself and not confident, then you would also start to lose confidence in me. So if you've ever been in a situation as well where you feel like, well, does somebody else feel this way about me? One, we don't know, we don't want to make assumptions, but two, a lot of times we project what we feel about ourselves on to other people, and that is not ideal. But we also need to recognize that if we're not in a healthy place and we're talking down about ourselves, other people will match our energy and treat us bad. I always have this concept of saying it's important for you to make sure that you're not asking people to treat you better than you're treating yourself. So people mimic what we do. Other things the research says, this is always a statistic that personally blows my mind. Up to 80% of our self talk can be negative, mind blowing. The only time that you're going to find that you're outside of that 80% realm is if you're doing the work. If you are in the process or you are being intentional about making sure that you are healing your past areas of hurt, that you're surrounding yourself with good people, that you're speaking to yourself well, all the things. Otherwise, you're going to find that about 80% of your thoughts are negative. And here's why. Cue the brain. Your brain is wired, it is hardwired for what we call negativity bias. It is in your limbic system, the area of your brain, that reptilian lizard brain that says, is this a threat? Is this not a threat? Your brain is wired for negativity, not because your brain doesn't like you, but because your brain's primary job is to keep you safe. So it's always looking and it's always searching for what could go wrong. The issue is if you are in a situation where you're around other fearful people, if you have a lot of anxiety, if you've had a lot of aversive childhood experiences, which are really harsh childhood experiences, those are all three examples, then you'll find that your negativity bias is just through the roof. It's way too high. And that can be a problem. And as a result, you may find that you're the kind of person that you are always waiting for the next shoe to drop. You are always concerned about what could go wrong. Sometimes you might call it being analytical, but when your analytics get to the point where it drives everyone else around you crazy and makes you so afraid that you don't do the things that you love, then we know that it's completely out of hand and it's not set up the way that you want it to be. But when you work through it, there are some very powerful things that can happen so that you can move away from that negative self talk and really work to develop a healthier self concept. And that's going to be something that we all should want. So I love this expression. Many of us have become too good at turning gold into garbage. I thought that was a really interesting and unique way to kind of consider we can take good moments and turn them into garbage when we're completely assessing everything in our life through our loop of negative self talk, or if we're holding on to that part of us that believes that being harsh and critical of ourselves is a part of making ourselves successful. I want to say it a million times. I'll say it as many times as you will listen. Being critical of yourself, being demanding and harsh on yourself is not an adaptive way to do better. It is essentially like bullying yourself in a way that is ineffective. It adds to your brain's negativity bias, and it is not going to consistently push you in the direction that you want to go. It might get you started for a moment, but then once you get started, you're going to be interconnected to so much fear that as a result of that, you're going to isolate or feel the need to be in control or back away from doing things that might bring you joy because it feels like too much for you when you can't do it all your way. I'll also say if you are the kind of person that you feel like things don't go well unless they can go exactly the way that you want them to, we want to take a look at your self talk and see what the true health of your self concept is like. Now, let's say that you've been listening and you're identifying and you know, okay, Dr. Charryse, you're right. I do have some areas that I want to clean up. Well, let's get into what you can do in order to support yourself. So, I want to give you 6 ways that you can improve your self talk and your self concept. The first 3 that I want to give you come from a book called Authentic Happiness by Dr. Martin Seligman. Seligman is spelled Seligman. And he has a really great way of looking through the lens of positive psychology. Notice I didn't say toxic positivity, positive psychology, which is centered and focused around looking for positive and supportive ways that you can become the person that you want to be. So that when you step in the room and you sit at the table and you interact with other individuals, you feel good about who you are and what you bring into the room. And so the whole premise behind this book, and it is a book that I think that you would enjoy and I recommend, is collect evidence from your life to help refute the negative thoughts and the negative messages that might replay in your mind. A lot of times we have a negative thought and we allow that to become truth instead of stepping back and going, here's my automatic thought that's based out of fear, but what is it that I want to do and how do I want to move forward in a way that actually looks at the evidence that is in my life and compares the two. So, 3 things that he suggests, and I'm kind of paraphrasing these techniques. The first one is to look laterally. You've heard me, if you've interacted with me in other spaces, you've heard me say this before. When you look laterally, you essentially widen the lens. You expand your awareness of yourself by looking in different directions, those that are not in the same direction that you are accustomed to. We can have a very narrow focus of how we think things are going to be. So when you look laterally, you take the blinders off. And instead of seeing things in one direct way, you go, what are some other possibilities? What's another way that I can look at this and look through this? The second thing is savoring positive experiences. So this means you consciously set up favorable experiences. I highly suggest things like shopping, or going out with friends or traveling. Had to get that one in there. Search for the joy in your day. Really work hard to find those small everyday moments that bring you joy. Savor them, sit in them for a moment. And if you're in a situation, because this is real and this happens, where you're like, I don't have the finances or I don't have the opportunity to create intentional moments of joy, then the other thing that you can do is reminisce about experiences from the past. That's why we daydream. That's why our mind loves to go back to old spaces and old relationships and only look at the positive aspects, because it brings us joy and it creates a high level of dopamine. The third thing is learn to accept and give yourself compliments. This is more challenging than it sounds. If you're a person and you're like, oh, I give myself compliments, fine. I want you to consider, do you give yourself compliments in multiple areas, or are you good, or have you become accustomed to complimenting yourself in one specific area? So I really want you to challenge yourself to do two things. One, if someone gives you a compliment, be able to hold that with gratitude and genuinely go, thank you. I actually do feel good about that, and let it land. Or work to give yourself compliments in various areas, in multiple areas of your life, and looking at all the various ways that you show up and showing gratitude. The next three techniques come from my book, Expired Mindsets. Here is one version of it. This is the hardback version that you don't often see, but is available, of course, Amazon, bookstores, all the things. Three techniques that are in this that are also centered around negative self talk and self concept is number four, be your own activist. That means center caring for yourself and take an active role in developing your own self concept. If you spend more time allowing other people to give you input and feedback than you do with your own level of input and feedback, there's going to be an imbalance there. And the problem with that is when we are not an activist in our own lives and we allow other people to dictate to us what we believe about ourselves, they have too much power. So I need you every day to remind yourself to be the greatest activist in your life. Number five, practice stillness. Do not sleep on having time to be still. When I talk about the 515 system of success and mindset matters, a session of silence and of stillness is crucial. It's crucial from a neurobiological aspect, but when we think about it from the dynamic of negative self talk and negative self concepts, when you sit in stillness, it allows you to pause and really separate your focus, your feelings, and all the input that's coming from other people. It allows you to step back and say, what do I really want for myself? What am I really willing to do for myself? And I truly believe that practicing stillness and being your own activist goes hand in hand. Being still is an active, adaptive coping skill that allows you to regulate and check in. And then when you get up, you decide how you need to move. And then number six, my personal favorite, protect your energy. Guard your energy from those who will drain you with their negativity and have a habit of constantly pointing out everything that is wrong in themselves and everything that is wrong with everybody. Those are the people that you do not want in your life. So, for those who may be listening to this through audio, let me go right back through those six without all the commentary to make sure you didn't miss any. Number one, look laterally. Number two, savor positive experiences. Number three, learn to accept and give yourself compliments. Number four, be your own activist. Number five, practice stillness. And number six, protect your energy. All right. So that wraps up the bulk of what we're going to talk about today. But as I said, we're going to get into a little after party. So for those of you who want to hang around for a moment, pop in the chat, ask questions. I want to stay around and answer some of those questions to you. As you continue to move through and listen to Dear Dr. Charryse, you can always go into the podcast notes to find the latest information about how to connect with me, how you can connect to books and resources that I've recommended, and how we can continue to stay in touch. Before we get into a Q&A, hopefully this will work well, I want to play a song for you. For those of you who have been listening to multiple rounds of Dear Dr. Charryse, you know that I periodically, I used to do it all the time, but now we're back to periodically, will play for you some song that's here's what I'm listening to. Well, here's a little snapshot of what I'm listening to. It is a new song written by my amazing husband called Summer Breeze. And let me give you a little taste. See if it will play. Hi, Jessica. You like it?
It's 75 degrees outside. Let me roll my windows down, it's not that hot. Cruising down the freeway, headed to the beach. A gentle wind blowing in my face. All of my troubles fade away. I'm overwhelmed by an everlasting peace. Cause when you breathe on me, it's like a summer breeze on me. Holy Spirit, breathe on me. Let me feel the breeze. Cause when you breathe on me, yeah, it's like a summer breeze on me. Yeah, Holy Spirit, breathe on me. Let me feel the breeze.
All right. I'm only giving you a taste because if you want it, you got to go grab it. It'll be out, I believe, next week on all music platforms. I think it's something that you're going to love. And of course, share it with others. I can see your chat. I'm going to open up another version of YouTube just to make sure. And I just want to double check before we sign off. Does anyone have any questions around anything that I've discussed tonight? Anything that doesn't make sense or an area of struggle for you that I will address. So I'll give you a moment to think about that. I'll pop this up and then we will go from there. Thank you, Joanna. I'm glad you came. Marianne, Kathy Joy, Michelle, questions or comments? All right. If you guys have no questions or comments, that means I am magical. Just kidding. I was practicing, giving myself a compliment. No, I'm glad these concepts landed for you well. It has always been a joy. Continue to come back and listen to this on your own time. Take notes, share it with others. And specifically, if you ever notice yourself in a place where you're starting to get down on yourself, where you're not feeling good about yourself, and you know that that internal dialogue that you have isn't where it needs to be, allow this to come back and be a resource for you to kind of help give you a pep talk and get you back on track with loving and caring yourself, caring for yourself. And as I always say, do the work. Make sure that you are applying the things that you heard because we all know that knowledge is not power without application. I will see you all in a few weeks. Have a wonderful rest of the week.